folks, Chuck Holton here. Welcome to the Hot Zone. I am back in Panama for just a few days, unfortunately. Here at my home, I've only really spent less than 20 nights in my own bed here this year. So it's been a really busy year, and it's nice to be back. It's far too short. But I've got to go back to Ukraine for another month, and so I'll be leaving on Sunday and heading back over. So we'll have some more reporting from Ukraine here very shortly. But while I'm here in Panama, I wanted to talk about the protests that have been going on for almost a month now here in this country. The worst protests I've seen in 40 years, since the invasion, really. And why? Well, they're protesting over the high cost of fuel and food and things like that, corruption in the government, and there are various disparate agencies or forces that are organizing these protests. And the way that the Panamanians protest is, unfortunately, by just standing in the middle of the street and stopping traffic. And most of the people who are doing that probably don't even own a car, so it doesn't really bother them a whole lot, except for the fact that now, instead of being expensive, food and fuel and stuff are completely gone. They're not even available. Now, I have been a little critical of the Panamanian government for its passivity in not doing really anything to stop these protests. And I guess maybe they're showing themselves to be crazy like a fox, a little smarter than I am maybe, at how to deal with these sorts of things. Because if you think about it, if they had come in right away with riot troops and had cleared out the streets, which is what I wanted them to do, they would have immediately been condemned as dictatorship, as persecutors, violence against peaceful civilians just peacefully protesting. Although I've made the case that I don't think you can call it a peaceful protest if you're holding your neighbors hostage with a gun to their head. So, but they didn't do it. They didn't do that. Even when things started going really bad, they tried to meet with some of these groups and offer them some relief in the form of lower fuel prices, lower food prices on a basic, they call it a canasta, basic basket of staple foods. None of that really worked because, you've got so many different groups and they all have their own, go, no-go sort of line, and you sort of couldn't reach that with all of them, because if you reach a deal with one group, then the other group's going to say that they sold out, and vice versa. It's really and it kind of an intractable problem. And I wondered if the only way that this would stop would be for the government to collapse. But then what? You got new elections. You put a new government in. The government's formed by people, fallible people. It's formed of fallible people, and there's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be graft. And in the long run, or in the final analysis, the government cannot really control the price of fuel or the price of food. Putting in price controls is a communist way of trying to deal with it that is largely ineffective in the long run. In the short run, it makes people think that the government's doing something. In the long run, it just crushes your producers, which leads to even less supply, leads to even higher prices. But the government has just sat back and has just watched it happen for the most part. And lately, over the last week, what we've seen is that now the people are getting fed up with the protesters. The rest of the people that are being held hostage, the people who can't get food for their babies, the people who can't get fuel for their vehicles, the people who can't run their businesses because they can't transport their produce to market. They're getting fed up with the rioters, and they're starting to fight against the rioters and get violent. It's unfortunate to see Pueblo versus Pueblo, and we have seen some deaths even here in Panama. That's really out of the ordinary. This is normally a very peaceable place. These are incredibly pacifistic people. So when they get mad enough, they start fighting each other. It's bad. And once the people started fighting against the others, then the government had a valid reason that would fly with everybody to bring in the riot police and break up the protest and open the roads. And so now the police have been coming in very respectfully telling the protesters, listen, Everybody else is getting so mad. They're going to come kill you. So we're here to protect you, and we're going to do that by opening this road. So you're going to have to get out of the way. And if they don't, then they bring in the riot troops and they push them out of the way. So it's kind of a passive-aggressive way of ending the protests. They haven't ended. There are still protests in something like 7 of the 10 provinces, but fortunately, all of them are between me and Costa Rica, not between me and the airport in Panama City. So I was able to get to my home with no problems at all. Didn't even see any trace of protest coming from the airport. And hopefully it'll be that way when I go back to the airport on Sunday. So that's what I'm seeing so far. We've seen some, it's real unfortunate that we're seeing these protests in 100 countries around the world. People are very angry. They're very upset, and the governments are all trying to blame it on Russia. It's not Russia's fault, not entirely. I mean, Russia obviously bears some guilt for stopping up the food supply, the fertilizer supply, but I don't think that that is really being felt in the markets just yet. I think that that will be felt this winter and into next spring, as Michael Yon says. That's when the real famines will start around the world. They're already, you're not hearing anything about it, but there are already millions, tens of millions of people who are displaced, hungry, literally starving to death in Africa. And it's like nobody cares about Africa. So once I get back from Ukraine this next trip, I may try to go to Sudan, Ethiopia, because there's huge battles going on in Ethiopia right now, mostly against Christians. They're killing tens of thousands of Christians over there. They say something like 500,000 people have died already in the last 2 years of conflict in the Tigray region. And a lot of those people are fleeing into Sudan, so maybe I'll go there and talk to them. But in the meantime, I'm going to relax and try to do as little as possible around here and just enjoy this beautiful, peaceful place. If it weren't for the constant din of the weed whackers, it would be absolutely perfect. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and thanks for staying with us over the last month. I know it's been kind of sporadic because I haven't really been doing much. I've been trying real hard to spend time with my grandkids and trying real hard to get some stuff done around the farm up in West Virginia, and again now here in Panama. But there's a lot more coming, as usual. Stay tuned.